When does the pulse quicken? When does the heart race? Maybe here on this drive. What do they think about? Where do their minds go? How much do the wheels turn?
You're just in this fishbowl where you just know that everybody on the mounds in this gigantic amphitheater is just watching you.
So much history.
That is better than most. Better than most.
Both sublime and shocking.
This hole will make you do things you don't do anywhere else.
So much at stake. So they drive closer and closer to one of the game's ultimate self-examinations. Closer to Pete Dye's suffocating labyrinth. Closer to those razor-sharp memories. Closer to their last moment of peace. Come along for the ride on Morning Drive.
Morning Drive, presented by Rolex.
And good morning. Welcome into Morning Drive. It is Thursday, May the 11th, the year 2017, the first round of the 44th edition of the Players' Championship. Lauren Thompson, good morning. What a great day in our game. What's happening?
A great day. And Damon, we're going to be busy because all morning long we're bringing our viewers the in-progress highlights for some of the biggest names in the field. How about three of the winners of the Players all playing side by side in round one? Jason Day, the defending champion, Ricky Fowler and Henrik Stenson. They're going off that 10th tee at 8:16 a.m. Eastern time.
That's a big group. Jason Day trying to become the first player to go back-to-back at the Players.
You want more big names? Yeah, we got it. All right, so how about what they're pulling off so far this morning? No problem. Jordan Spieth, Hideki Matsuyama, and Phil Mickelson, 8:27 a.m. Eastern time. Just a sample of who and what we have teed up because they're going to be busy in the field. We're going to be busy as well.
I love it. Very exciting. Let's set up the road to TPC Sawgrass and say good morning to Carr Robinson.
Yes, good morning from TPC Sawgrass, where we're going to get you set for this opening day of the Players. The sun has risen and we're preparing for another scorching day here in Ponte Vedra with low winds and highs close to 90. The first Players will begin play in just under 10 minutes time, and two-time runner-up Bernhard Langer is one of those already here preparing for his opening round. We will keep you inside the ropes throughout our show this morning as we welcome you into our position on the driving range, which will be bustling with players throughout our 2-hour show this morning. Cara Robinson, delighted to be with you for the next couple of hours alongside Charlie Reimer and a man who has produced a couple of top 3 finishes in this championship, John Cook. He knows this course very well and has indeed spent a lot of time walking it this week already. Cookie, it is Thursday morning though at the Players. It's game time now. What is the mentality for the players arriving today?
It's just routine. This is the prep is in. They're not searching or trying to find anything right now. They're kind of going over the golf course. They know that they're brand new greens, but the greens are going to be fairly receptive. It's an early, beautiful morning. They know the scores it's very scoreable today, so they're prepared mentally to shoot some decent scores right out of the blocks. They have to get off to decent starts. They got a couple par 5s to start their days, whether you're playing off the front 9 or the back 9, and you got to get these holes quickly or the golf course will win.
Yeah, Charlie, we're just taking a little look at Louis Oosthuizen, and he's preparing for his tee time. He's 7:21 a.m. Eastern as well. We're going to have a lot of players here on the driving range behind us in our window this morning, which is wonderful. One of those Lauren mentioned was Phil Mickelson. He's had an interesting approach this week. Typically, he might not play the golf course on a Wednesday, but he's not played this new look golf course at all. Does that concern you?
Well, it does a little bit because it's a very different golf course. We've talked a lot about the brand new hole number 12. There's been some tweaks to 6 and 7, but basically it's the same routing with the exception of number 12. But the greens have been resurfaced. They've been sort of softened in places, extended in places. I think for someone like Phil Mickelson, who obviously has played a lot of golf on this golf course over the years, when he gets out here and sees these greens, John, they're going to be very different than what he's seen in the past. The putting surfaces are perfect, but the ball's not going to be reacting like it has for the last 30 years here.
That's right, Charlie. You're exactly right. There's a number of hole locations where the ball would feed down towards towards the hole. The pockets on 4, the very front, and then left side of 4. If you hit a ball up on that ridge, they would feed down towards the hole. No longer. That golf ball now tends to feed towards the back of the green. It doesn't. It runs out more towards the back of the greens and not straight down the hills like 13. That hole location that's on the left. Now there's 3 or 4 different hole locations, but the ball's not going to feed towards the hole. You're not going to be able to use those ridges like you normally would. So that's where Phil might be in a little bit of a shock if he hasn't seen those holes.
Which means Phil's probably going to shoot 65 today.
Shoot 65, right?
More on Mickelson later. Pete Cowan's keeping a watchful eye on Louis Oosthuizen. As you can see, we will keep you inside the ropes throughout our 2-hour window this morning. But the defending champion will begin his campaign in just over an hour's time. He tees off alongside 2 former champions, Ricky Fowler, who of course triumphed in 2015, and Henrik Stenson some 8 years ago in 2009. They play at 8:16 a.m. Eastern Time, and the world number 3 knows what it will take to have success here again.
I kind of do the same as what I did last year, really. I played the backside good compared to most of the other guys in the week, and that pretty much what really won me the tournament. You got to shoot 6 under or more to really get ahead of the players, because it is a difficult finish.
Well, this event tends not to favour the defending champion. In fact, none of the previous 42 have ever managed it, and the last 11 haven't even finished inside the top 10 in their title defence year. The best attempts you can see were a tie for 5th by both Tom Kite and Hal Sutton the year after their victories here at the Players. Most recently, Adam Scott finished tied for 8th in 2005. So when we talk about Jason Day, he did become the first Players champion to go bogey-free on the back 9 for all 4 rounds last year. He just referenced that in his sound, knowing that was a key for him last year. Charlie, what do you think will be the key for him this time around?
I think it's getting off to a good start. Jason Day and dealing with his mom's illness right around the Masters time. He's been distracted this year. There's no doubt about that. He looks very different, John. I mean, he looks like he's lost 10 or 15 pounds. He didn't really need to. I mean, he looks absolutely super fit. But if you look at what he did here last year, he was number 1 in distance, and he was also number 1 in scrambling. That's a rare combination right there. I mean, that's showing length and touch around the greens. But I just think where he is in the season, trying to sort of jumpstart things. Carr, as you were mentioning in our meeting this morning, he was saying yesterday that he feels like he's rebuilding his game. When you're in a position like that, the last thing you want to do is be 2 over through 4. You know, if he gets off to a good start, I think that that would be huge for him.
Well, one thing I want to pick up on, Cookie, is the club that was a huge advantage to him last year, or a club that he put into play and was incredibly successful. That's the 2-iron. He said in his press conference earlier this week that 2-iron's broken. He's pretty upset about it. He caved the face in. How you cave the face in of a 2-iron, I'm not entirely sure. He's got a replacement, but just talk a little bit about the significance of having the 1 and 2 irons in the bag this week. We know that Rory McIlroy and Dustin Johnson will have the 1-iron as well.
This golf course doesn't favor, the longest hitters. You have to play to certain angles. You have to play to the center points, the turning points of the golf hole. And whether that's with a driver or with a 2-iron like Jason did last year, you have to hit it to about 270 or so for those turning points. And that's exactly where that 2-iron would go. He'd get another one. I mean, there's no problem of replacing that one with the same specs and same everything. So I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. But like Charlie said, you have to get off to a good start. And you start at 1, you start at 2. I mean, you have to get those holes because there's not many of them out there. And for Jason to play, be as efficient as he was around the back 9, he's going to have to do that again. But he does. He looks fit. He looks really focused to me. Just watching him hit balls, there's a certain purpose. He's got that focus, that gleam in his eye of, okay, I'm ready to go. This is where I'm starting my year right here.
It is interesting to hear world number 3 talk about rebuilding, isn't it? But that just shows you where he expects himself to be. Also, you want to take advantage of the early tee time today because it is going to be hot these next couple of days. The greens are going to be potentially baked out by the afternoon. The Thursday morning wave will hopefully get off to a good start as we send it back to our Orlando headquarters and say good morning to Gary Williams.
All right, Carr, thanks so much. Interesting thoughts. Well, let's look at another group that's off early this morning. That is Jordan Spieth, Hideki Matsuyama, Phil Mickelson. Phil Mickelson's obviously won this championship. Jordan Spieth was in the final group in his first start there in 2014, along with the winner Martin Kaymer. Hideki Matsuyama, kind of a cool stretch right now. But for Jordan Spieth, he's missed the last 2 cuts in this event after a great performance in his first start there. Here are his thoughts heading into this year and his approach.
I love this course, and I think it fits my game well. I want to think that it's just been kind of a fluke couple times in a successful career at this event going forward, where those 2 years could have been spread out over 15, and everything, and everything else is solid. So I made no bogeys the first 54 holes I ever played in this tournament. I guess somewhere around 60 holes I ever played in this tournament. On this golf course, that's awesome, and so I know I can play it really well if I play it smart, and I think I've just been trying to do a little too much the last couple of years. Pete Dye is pretty good at if you try and take some chances and you're not quite on, that's where you get in trouble and you can make some numbers.
And you take a look at Jordan Spieth. Hey, you referenced that first start back in 2014, and you look at the last two miscuts. 2015 was off, certainly what had happened in winning the Masters and being paired with Rory McIlroy, and it was just a bad 2 days, and followed it up with a miscut again last year. But look at the scrambling numbers. He was phenomenal in that first start around those very challenging greens, but the last 2 years just above 50%. So it'll be interesting, and we haven't devoted a lot of time yet this week, team. We're going to talk more about him a little bit later on when he gets on the range. And of course, Chris DeMarco, 11 times you teed it up in the Players. I know how much this event means to you because as a player, it's your event. But Jordan Spieth, when you look at him right now, he's got to win this year. His ball striking numbers are outstanding thus far. We're in the middle of May. Your thoughts about him this week?
Well, I mean, we heard Charlie and John talk about how great the course is, how good the greens are, how pure they are. Well, that sits right into his table right there because he's obviously one of the best putters on tour. He's a great pitcher around the greens. The only thing that scares me about him is his driving accuracy. His driving accuracy is 108th this year. Obviously, his putting is 31st and his greens regulation second. So that's a great combination. But on this golf course, with as severe as it is, if you miss the fairways, whether it's pine straw or maybe a deep bunker or a deep mogul with rough, it's tough to shoot a good number, so he has to put the ball in the fairway. If he puts the ball in the fairway, he will be there at the end.
In addition to being a great player, he's an optimist. Talking about those two missed cuts, saying, hey, that could have been spread over 15 years, might happen to go back to back. Listening to him describe the state of his game to Todd Lewis earlier in the week, saying, I'm playing great golf right now. And listening to describe his love of those greens, saying they're in phenomenal shape. On new greens with no memory and no history, you have to think that's going to be an advantage to one of the best putters on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, and I think what you said is really important because when you listen to him week to week, he will always find a really positive outlook toward the golf course he's playing. He never has a defeatist attitude. And back to your point about his putting, and you know this, because he's hitting so many greens, being 31st is not that bad. Consider this, he's second Damon in birdie average. He's third in scoring on the PGA Tour this year.
And bidding to become the youngest player ever with 2 major championships and a Players Championship as well. We'll continue to watch the players warming up this morning. Right now, we send you back out to the range to Carr Robinson.
We're about to come back.
All right, David, thank you. Well, play is underway now on this Thursday morning. The first groupings just went off at 7:10 a.m. Eastern Time as we show you really what is a beautiful scene here at TPC Sawgrass. Just a spectacular clubhouse that overlooks the practice facility, which has also increased in size by some 35% following the changes that took place last year. Players are out, the range is bustling, and we will keep you inside the ropes. But it is time now to welcome in our regular Golf Channel contributor, Jeff Shackelford. Nice to see you again. How are you doing?
Great to be here. I'm very excited. It's going to be a fun day.
It really is setting up to be a great week, isn't it? And we all can't wait for play to get underway today. You, of course, are big on golf courses, on architecture. This has had a lot of attention so far this week. There have been a lot of changes. How do you expect those changes to affect the approach that the players take to making their way around?
My sense is that players are going to be able to be more aggressive. They're going to bring a little different energy to this golf course, Carr. You know, it's always been a golf course that has put players on the defensive. That's what Pete Dye likes. And I think that the tour, in looking at it, talking to the players, wants to maintain some of that awkwardness, some of that difficulty. However, I think they really want to see a little more excitement. And so the thing to look for early on, of course, is obviously in the scores, but just kind of in the energy in general. There's a lot less rough out there, and so I think you'll see a little more creativity too. And when the players can be that way, I think it just feeds the overall excitement of the event.
Do you want to see more aggression? Like, do you want to see players going for it on 12? Because it seems actually the narrative is that they're going to probably lay up these first couple of days.
Well, that's been the narrative, yes, absolutely. And I think that also plays into Pete Dye's vision for the course, because he loves when he can kind of sucker the tour player into doing something they shouldn't do.
Right.
And when there's a little less rough, there's more chance for recovery shots on around the greens, especially. There's a lot of short grass. This new 12th hole has a lot of short grass around the greens. And by the way, those players who all say they're going to lay up, they're going to notice all that short grass around the green and think, you know what, I think I can kind of inch it up there on that green. I can still get up and down. So I love that. I love what that brings. It's only going to take one player, by the way, to go for that green, and then the floodgates, I think, will open.
Right. Someone goes for the eagle in and they think, hang on a minute, we're missing a trick. Let's transition now. Big news yesterday, of course, Adidas did eventually sell TaylorMade for a reported $425 million to KPS Capital Partners. It maybe no surprise that they sold them, but a little bit surprising in some ways that TaylorMade is a company that's really at the top of the headlines right now in terms of the staple of players that they have and the product that they are producing. Were you surprised that this sale went through?
I was very relieved finally that it happened. I was a little probably surprised at the timing so close to Rory's signing, and we'll never know. Maybe we will find out someday if those two were linked. But I think it's great news, Cara, in that this has been something that's been lingering for a while. Adidas was a little tough on the golf industry and before they were trying to sell it, and so that kind of I think that left a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouth that they kind of put the game down. And so to see that somebody wants to invest in the company and get it back on track and kind of maintain some of the values of its founders, I think that's really, it's just good for golf. It allows everybody to kind of move on, because it's been something that's been lingering out there.
Yeah. And it's weird because it's a company that's still thriving and doing well, right, and bizarre kind of to be without ownership for almost a year.
Yeah, it was almost a mystery. People were starting to ask, what is going on here? Why is this happening? And so to kind of get that bias, I think it's a good thing for the overall sport to not have that lingering out there and people saying, well, is this a statement about the state of golf? It may have just been the things that are complicated in a sale like that, and or may have just been something taking a Rory signing to kind of put something over the edge. So either way, I think it's positive that we put it behind us and for everybody involved in the company.
Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, Jason Day, Dustin Johnson, TaylorMade's in a pretty good place.
They're doing fine.
And they are now owned by a private equity company. Good to know that that group is in safe hands. Jeff, thank you for joining us.
All right,
we'll continue to check in with you on jeffshackelford.com, and I'm sure you'll be back with us later this week as well. So let's take you back inside the ropes here on the driving range. Plenty of players preparing for their opening round tee time. JB Holmes making his 11th appearance in an event that he has had 2 top 10 finishes. He'll be going off at 7:54 a.m. Eastern time. And what about a guy with a little bit of local knowledge? Yeah, Billy Horschel is playing in his 5th Players Championship. This is a home game for him, so he might know this golf course better than the rest. We'll be back with more Morning Drive after this.